Talk to me a little bit about the challenges of scale.
You just have to start somewhere with something. And the sooner you start and get something out into the world, the better. I think that it's very important for women to realize it's okay to have aspirations outside of your children. It's okay if you don't have them outside of your children, but I don't know where this idea of feeling guilty about having a career, having a drive, having to make sacrifices.
How do you bridge that gap when you move into retail and now you have to do brand marketing?
You do start getting out into the real world, and it does become more about awareness and things that we never thought we would be talking about or driving initiatives behind. And that's honestly one of my favorite parts about Truvani is the business I work in today is pretty much unrecognizable than the business 6 years ago.
Welcome back to Rise, Life Stories of Accomplished Individuals. Thank you for joining me again. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment, and we're gonna jump into things. Melanie Duncan is co-owner and chief of creative at supplement powerhouse Truvani, the #1 protein company in the natural channel. They have products ranking #1 and #3 best-selling protein in Whole Foods. They are distributed through 6,000 plus stores, and from 2022 to 2023 have experienced 60% growth. Recently, Truvani was named within the top 7 healthiest protein powders by Discover magazine. Melanie's been scaling businesses online for over 17 years. She's operated businesses in the apparel, home decor, and wellness industries. Her brands have been featured in Entrepreneur, Forbes, and on ABC's Good Morning America. Beyond Truvani, Melanie is a passionate advocate for female entrepreneurship and has helped thousands of women all over the world grow their businesses. Recently, relocating to Miami with her business partner, husband, and 2 children, she embraces the challenges and opportunities that come with managing a fast-growing business while nurturing a family. Melanie's journey reflects her dedication to health, wellness, and empowering others, making her a source of inspiration and a leader in her field. How's it going, Melanie?
I'm just so impressed after I heard you go through all that.
You're impressed with my ability to write it, or you're impressed with yourself
I
for
don't know.
having done it?
It seems like the older I get, the longer that bio gets.
But that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well, mine will be longer than yours. So, you know, that's just the reality. We met socially. I think we met through the beach club that we're both members of.
Yes, yep.
That's where we met. I think we actually met by the pool when our kids were all, our collective children, your 2 and our 3 were running around, and we met and we hit it off.
I want to thank you for coming here today. My main motive for having you here and not doing this at your house was so that I didn't have to do the cold plunge with you.
Is that the reason why?
That's why.
Well, you did it before, and
before you had ice.
But I have to, you know what? I have to say, like, you're a trooper, because when you came over, and how much experience did you have with cold plunging prior to coming over to my house?
Well, I had done the one at Faina, which you have told me is not a cold plunge.
It's for children.
So I guess 0 experience.
Yes. I remember that day. That was great. You guys came over, and like I said, you were a real trooper. Devin jumped into it. And, he did this move where he was holding the side of it and he just dropped in.
Yeah.
And we were really proud of you. We were with Valeria, and we were really proud. You did a great job.
After you've had 2 children, there's very little that can actually intimidate you physically, in my opinion. Devin, I was talking after, he's like, wow, I can't believe you did it. I was like, I've had 2 children. So sitting in some, chilly water is not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
I say that now. I haven't been in it since you've lowered it with ice. So I could change my opinion on that.
We'll have to have you guys over as soon as possible. Melanie, I want to jump into kind of your early life. Why don't you, because I've had this conversation with Devin, and I know it from his side, and I know everything kind of, his story and how you guys met. I'd like to hear it from your side. So tell me, first of all, where you're from.
So much pressure. I'm the sequel. So I grew up actually in Portland, Oregon, in Tualatin specifically. It's a little suburb outside of Portland.
Okay. And were your parents entrepreneurs?
No. Not entrepreneurial at all. I had no interest in business. I came from a family of teachers and people that worked in, retail or sales businesses, but nothing entrepreneurial. I never thought I would be doing anything in business.
So how did that happen? How did it happen? So what did your parents do for a living?
So my mom worked in sales. She worked in actually the fragrance department of Nordstrom. And she did that basically my entire life. She worked in cosmetics and fragrance at Nordstrom, which was actually one of my first jobs, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Okay. I want to hear all about it.
And my dad had a variety of jobs. He worked in the wine industry for a while. He worked in men's shoes. He actually was a mailman for most of my elementary, high school life.
You have siblings?
Nope.
Okay, so how did this come to be? So how did you become entrepreneurial? I mean, let's first talk about, college. I mean, I was assuming you went off to college. Yeah. Okay. And where did you go to school?
Chapman University, which is where I met Devin.
Okay.
And I hope I don't give him a big head by saying this, but the truth is, I don't know if I would have become an entrepreneur if I hadn't met Devin.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow. And so so he was the influence. So what do you believe you would have become? What were you on track to do?
So I was studying psychology. And I was thinking that possibly I was going to go into child psychology. Once I met Devin, and actually I was kind of on the track towards organizational psychology in school because I was very interested in human behavior and businesses and kind of like a management type thing. My uncle did that, and I thought it was really interesting. So I was already dipping my toe into the business world, but full entrepreneur, I don't know if it would have happened without Devin.
So what sparked it? So like he told me when we sat here together, he basically told me that you guys had met, you started dating, and I think very quickly he said, hey, do you want to be partners on this business with me? And that was in the apparel business in the Greek community.
Yeah. We had started dating when that business started, but I just thought it was so fascinating. And probably before I got addicted to the rush of entrepreneurship itself, and it truly is, I believe, an addiction.
Yeah.
Good or bad, it is an addiction. I loved, his family was very entrepreneurial, and I loved the freedom. It sounds so cliche, but it's true. Like I had grown up seeing my parents go to jobs with set hours where you had to request vacation time, and you had all of these parameters for how you were allowed to live your life. And then I saw this, or Devin kind of showed me this world of, hey, after college, your life could look like this. There could be travel, there could be all this freedom, there could be all this flexibility, there could be this ability to be able to call the shots in your life and this lifelong learning. And I was hooked within a couple months.
It sounds like the brochure.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like the reality of entrepreneurship.
Well, that's very true. That's very true. He sold me on the dream very successfully.
Now, can you explain to me, how is it that right after you guys met, he was able to convince you to go into business with him?
Well, I wasn't formally in business with him. It was a startup of an idea. So we started working on the company together. He was really much more experienced than me with the logistics of running a business, how to set it up, how to do all of the important legal, structural, that type of stuff. And he's always been amazing at ops. So he was really figuring out how to source materials, how we were going to get leases, how we were going to do all these different things. And where I came in with custom Greek threads was actually more of the style component. So we were selling Greek apparel, merchandise. I know you kind of know the full background, but I started thinking about, American apparel was very big at the time.
Yep.
And I was noticing this really interesting kind of street style, the way they were photographing their clothing. And I thought, well, we could do that same sort of thing. So, I'd kind of bribe some of my girlfriends and say, we'll pay you X, or we'll give you some free American apparel, just come and model the clothes for us. So I started taking photos for the website just on a camera. You didn't use your phone then. This was so long ago. But I started taking photos, and then we were looking at all these different customization options. And I thought, well, instead of just having these primary colors that people are using to customize their letters, what if we got really cool patterns? I went to different fabric stores and found really unique.
The patterns on the letters themselves.
Yes. So the actual fabric we were using that I was cutting by hand that would say Delta Gamma or would say Alpha Phi. I thought, what if we find cool designer fabrics? What if we find, different textures? And then we started doing all these crazy upgrades. Like you could line the interior of your hoodie with faux fur, all these upsells, ways to make the apparel more customized.
I didn't hear this component of it. And it's interesting when you hear about a business in its early days. We sat here with Devin a few months ago.
Yeah.
And, he was really talking more about the logistics and, the data and distribution and, all of that. And it's just interesting to get a take of the same business.
Yeah.
From two different partners.
Yeah, totally different take.
So for you, it's all about product. Like it's all about, making a product that connects with your target audience or, your target buyer and really creating that value. So talk to me about that creative process, because I'm guessing that is now very true of Truvani, which we're going to talk about in a bit. But talk to me about that process and how do you get into the hearts and the minds of your potential buyer, so you know who that potential buyer is. You have that demographic in mind. Probably when you were doing the business in the Greek community, you were very much part of that demographic. And I would probably say, I would have to guess that with Truvani, you're probably right there in the middle of that demographic yourself personally. So you know it because you are it. But then how do you then create that product that then resonates with these cohorts?
You ask a lot of questions.
I ask
a lot of good questions.
Well, I ask long-winded questions because I want to make sure I provide the sufficient context to get the answer.
No, but what I mean is you ask, you as in anyone, you have to ask a lot of questions.
Right.
You have to be curious. I was not in Greek life. I was a college student, but I was not in a sorority.
You weren't in a sorority?
No,
okay.
which was the funny thing. Is neither Devin and I were in Greek life, even though we served that community. But I did have friends that were in Greek life, and you just have to that's where the psychology comes in. I've always loved figuring things out, figuring people out. Why do they do the things they do? Why do they like the things they like? So I think with the Greek apparel, and then while Devin is very much, the data-driven component, you can learn a lot by just looking at, okay, what's selling well? What are people responding to? What is something they're asking customer service about that we don't have yet?
That's once you're making sales, you can do that data analysis.
Yes, once you're making sales, sure. But even, again, going back in time here, having Facebook. There was an Instagram around when we launched that business. You could do Facebook posts. You could ask people. You could do polls. I mean, we did so many of my businesses before there was ever the actual business. I was posting polls and asking questions and doing things like that, informal surveys to kind of get a read on a different segment of a market.
Okay. And so where did it go from there?
Custom Greek threads?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh, that was so long ago. But so we did the Greek business together all through college, all the way until graduation. And I remember it was a really big kind of defining moment when I was graduating and deciding to keep working with that business versus going to grad school versus taking another job versus doing something. So officially decided Devin and I were going to focus on that business full time. We got engaged very shortly after we graduated. And, we're really dreaming and thinking a lot about what we want our lives to look like together. Custom Greek threads, we scaled. We were the #1 Greek apparel company in the nation due to our online marketing. I think Devin covered a lot of this, so I won't go too deep into it. But that business was
but I'd like to hear it from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we were really learning everything about online marketing, nuts and bolts, kind of as it was happening in real time, which now that I look back on it was such a cool experience of Facebook ads launching and learning how to do Facebook ad campaigns when Facebook ads was still figuring out what they were doing. And so we got this incredible opportunity to be a part of SEO and ads and all these different types of online marketing mechanisms before they were as commonplace as they are now. So we used that, learned a lot. Yeah. And then some of the biggest things I remember learning from Custom Greek Threads was delegating and working and managing people, which I am still humbled to learn every single day.
You just said something, sorry to cut you off, but you just said something that's interesting. You said that you learned a lot from Custom Greek Threads. And I think that it's important that the people listening to this, aspiring entrepreneurs, understand that you're essentially going to school. And to have that attitude, like you say it so naturally, like what I learned from Custom Greek Threads, where I believe that a lot of people, they don't think that they're learning at their business, like in their business. They believe that they're executing their business in order to generate, revenue and make an income. But it's the education piece that I think people are underestimating and they're undervaluing.
Yeah.
But the way that you talk about your businesses as experiences that, feed into what you're doing now.
Right.
And I think I can see that in your product. I'm a big fan of your product, as you know.
Thank
and
you.
I take your collagen daily and I eat your bars probably every other day. So no, I'm very familiar. So you can see that kind of you using that education that you've been receiving through your own initiatives. So I find that really interesting, and I hope that the audience picks up on this.
Well, it's an important mindset. I mean, I didn't think that I was going to run a Greek apparel company for the rest of my life.
Okay.
I was 22 years old.
Wow.
Running a Greek apparel company, and I knew that this was going to be a vessel for things in the future. And I think every business I've ever operated since then, that's how I viewed it. I don't think there's really any one business that I'm going to do forever. It's about what is the most amount of learning and experience and character and skill building that I can get from this particular business.
So when you say, you wouldn't do any single business forever, I guess there's no real finish line. Like you don't,
Right.
Or there's no real stability. Is there any stability in business, would you say, as an entrepreneur? And when I say
gosh.
stability, I mean, is it possible to create in today's kind of landscape, is it possible in your opinion to create a business that will actually be like I don't want to say proper, but a stable business that you can base your life on, like almost like an annuity that you will always make money, you'll always grow. Because I feel in the digital age, there's somewhat of like a hot potato mentality to businesses because you don't know when something can go wrong, right?
Yeah, I would say, and I'm laughing again because I think this is cliche, but it's truly my answer. I don't know that there is any stability in a particular business, but I do believe in stability of self. So
Elaborate on that.
Devin and I have made a lot of risky, different decisions in different businesses in our life. And I never have been, and this is a testament to Devin as well as a partner, but I have never been scared when we made a decision or took a risk or was doing something that was a little outside our comfort zone, because it wasn't that I thought the business wouldn't fail or was impervious to any type of failure, but it was more so I knew if this business failed, we would be able to figure out something and be okay. We'd be able to figure out the next idea, the next business. I've always felt very confident in that.
But how? I mean, when I say how, just to provide some more context, going into business is scary. And when businesses fail, especially when you've built up a business over time and let's say your lifestyle or your expenses like rely on that business, and then for a business to fail or for something to go wrong, there's a million things. You can be sued, you can, businesses can shut down overnight. Barrier to entry for entrepreneurs has never been as low, just with technology available to all. So how do you not get nervous? How do you not get anxious about the instability of business, especially now you have a family, you have children? How do you get past that anxiety or not experience it at all?
Well, I think it's two things. I'll start off by saying I think it's a choice. I don't think I would be able to survive, let alone succeed, if I allowed myself to operate from that scarcity mindset. You just couldn't do it. There's enough stuff on a daily basis that if you are not mentally stable in a good place, I couldn't lead my team. I couldn't tap into the creativity that I need to do the work that I do. I couldn't be a parent. I couldn't be a partner to my husband. It would be a different life. It's not an option, I feel. But then I also, like I said, and I know Devin's going to watch this, but I know that he does worry and think about.
Sure.
And so I am very blessed to know that if it was just me, I don't think I would necessarily be able to take the risks and feel the confidence. But I think it's a confidence in our partnership and what we've created together and how much I trust him that I'm able to be like, no, we're not going to operate from that type of place.
It sounds a lot like the relationship. It sounds a lot like Valeria and I. It's very similar. Valeria is super optimistic that everything's going to be okay. And it's not that I'm not. It's just that I feel like I'm more rooted in realism. Right. Because I'm also the one in the books all the time.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
She's like, everything's great. Everything's fine. I'm like, everything's great. Everything's fine. Yeah. You talk about health and you talk about kind of, well-being and your ability you find that stability within yourself in terms of, as an operator of a business and as an operator of your life.
Yeah.
Truvani, Truvani as a company, and we're going to get into the products and the genesis of Truvani, but you make products with clean ingredients.
Right.
Products. Would it be inaccurate to say you're in the supplement business? Because I think there's an aspect of supplements to your business.
Yeah, snacks and supplements.
But because those bars, they're not supplements. They're
Correct.
just delicious snacks.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
So is there a connection between your belief in physical health and well-being to the products that you're putting out? Like in order to help, do you believe that because you also work with entrepreneurs, do you feel that providing them with the proper nutrients in order to conduct themselves, is that part of your kind of thesis in your business?
Oh, no question. No question. Dev and I talk all the time about running a business is like a marathon. And he makes fun of me because I wake up around 5 o'clock every morning and I have a whole ritual for the day to get mentally, it does not involve cold plunging yet, but to get mentally and physically and emotionally ready for the day. And it can sound trite, but like I do red light, I have breath work, I do meditation, I do journaling, I do all these things because I do feel that I want our business to be the most successful business it can be. My state of well-being, my brain health, my physical health. I work out almost every single morning because if I'm not taking care of myself physically, it's going to affect my performance mentally. And if my physical and mental performance is not at a peak state, how am I supposed to be operating a business in the best capacity possible? So I absolutely believe nutrition, movement, sunlight, supplementation, I believe all of that. The funny thing is, I was not as hardcore when we started Truvani. It has been a slippery slope over the last 6 years.
Why is that?
Because I have gotten so educated, or I feel I've gotten very educated on so many aspects of health and into such
through Truvani.
Through working in the business. Yeah. Yes. Through, working on product development and learning so much about ingredients and manufacturing and things that as a consumer, I would have never really taken it upon myself to research. And then just through, people I've met in this space, you start, it's a slow bleed, you start listening to different podcasts, you start reading different books, and it kind of takes you down this whole rabbit hole of, oh, wow, there's a completely different way I could be nourishing myself mentally and physically.
You're very much a practitioner of this because when we went out to dinner the first time, and I mentioned this in the podcast with Devin, is, we went out and when we arrived at the restaurant, the first thing you did was give each Valeria and I a book.
Books, yeah.
And I thought at first,
I love books.
Yeah, and I thought, wow, and we're new friends. We were new friends at that time, and I found it like refreshingly peculiar in a very positive way. I really like that. I really like that.
Not a lot of people in Miami going out to dinner with books.
No, but you actually said to me, this isn't a gift. I'm going to follow up with you and I'm going to kind of like test you, which you haven't. You haven't.
I've wanted to.
No, but you should. But I need you to tell me something though. When you have a moment, if you remember, tell me what the name of the book was because I have this pile of books that I have to read. And at this point, they keep piling up, and I have so many of them that friends give me.
Yeah,
yours is in there, and I can't remember which one was yours. So when you can,
The Road Less Traveled.
Okay, I'll definitely. Okay, if it's The Road Less Traveled, I'm committing to you that I will read this book, and we're going to talk about it. Talk to me about the genesis of Truvani. I'd like to know how all of this started.
Okay, let me try to distill it down. So Truvani probably happened 14 or 15 years into my entrepreneurial journey. And I say that because I think it's important to preface every business Devin and I have done together, we've walked away, as you said, with learnings. Learnings about what we liked, what we didn't like through our own experiences, but also the structure of the business. So we did custom Greek threads. We also had a business called Luxury Monograms. We operated those for a while and we realized, oh my gosh, like physical products are really hard. There's inventory potentially, there's cost of goods, there's shipping, there's this whole production element. And this is giving you a little intermission here with the business before custom Greek threads, but we got into digital marketing because we're like, this is great. You're basically selling air, at least the idea of it.
And digital education.
Yeah. Exactly. So we did that for about 5 years, loved it. And then we came back to CPG. We came back to physical products.
Why?
Devin will have a highly strategic answer for you about sellability and different things.
That's what I remember the conversation
Yes,
being.
of course. Yeah. For me, truly, I am the consummate consumer. I love products. I feel like the right products enhance my life, whether it's through interior design, whether it's through fashion, whether it's through supplements. I love products. I love physical things. And I think giving people something physical is really, really powerful. That was something I was always kind of trying to bridge the gap with my digital business was, creating different booklets or things. And I think women in particular too, like we're very tangible. We want to hold something, feel it, touch it, see it in real life. So I was just so excited about having a brand with physical products. Just the idea of being able to market that and give people something in real life that they could use to work towards their health goals and to have a better and richer life.
But why specifically you started off with the turmeric powder,
Yes.
if I recall.
Yes.
So, you started off with supplements.
Yeah.
So why specifically the supplement business? When you kind of looked, like, where did you feel there was a white space?
Yeah, we were doing some consulting. Actually, Devin and I both for some Amazon companies. I'm not sure if you talked about this or not. And
Yes,
there
we did.
was, there was a turmeric product in particular that was very generic, not great ingredients, terrible packaging, no branding, nothing. And it was selling like crazy. And we could see different search volumes and the fact that this particular type of supplements and supplements in general, this was 6 years ago, there was starting to be an interesting increase in that type of market. So that was kind of the genesis, was seeing the popularity and the demand for something like a turmeric supplement. We had no idea how big it would become, but it did start with that particular supplement because of the interest we were seeing on Amazon.
Okay. And talk to me about the challenges of scaling, because it's one thing to come up with your initial product and your initial offering. Scale is very different. I have firsthand knowledge. Well, we tried doing a fashion brand, and we have millions of followers. Valeria has millions of followers that we have access to, and we have the goodwill via her personal brand. But with you guys, you had the one product. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs can kind of, before they start, they can understand that maybe single SKU product development. But in order to scale, you not only have to go, if I'm not mistaken, again, I'm not in the product business, but not only do you have to go deep and become a specialist in the original item that you create, but you have to at some point start going wide in order to capture kind of more market share, to be able to sell to the same consumer other products within the same brand. So can you talk to me about the challenges of scaling, both from a product perspective, but it sounds to me like your role and what you love doing is more on the, I would say, product development from a branding, from a brand perspective.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the challenges of scale.
Well, that's a big question to unpack. I would say, first of all, you just have to start somewhere with something. And, none of us at Truvani have any fancy business degrees or high strategy experience in CPG specifically. None of us do.
Which is that's fascinating to me, because just a couple of quick things.
Sure.
Because when you look at the brand, like your brand overall, and you look at all of the care and attention given to the packaging and how everything blends together, the fact that I know that I'm holding a Truvani product, like in terms of my collagen powder in the big red, in the big red bag, and then also when I have the bars and I look at the bars, like I feel the connection with the brand, which is really interesting. But again, you keep talking and I have more questions as to how it's possible to create a product and do what you've done without this, what you call fancy, education. Because I just had an interview with a lovely woman who recently sold her company for $150 million, and they make shampoo. And both, she was very much in the marketing world and he was very much in the corporate CPG world. But you guys aren't.
No.
And so that's a disconnect for me. How did you do this?
Lots of screw ups along the way, for sure. It's not that everything has been seamless, so I never want to project that that's how it's happened.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of scaling a business, you have to start somewhere, and the sooner you start and get something out into the world, the better. That was something I saw a lot when I was doing more consulting and coaching with women entrepreneurs, was this, what do they call it? It's basically your analysis paralysis.
Yes.
Where they should I launch this? Should I do this? Should it be like this? Should there be 3 products or 2 products or 5? Or it's like, just get something out into the world, because what I've experienced in every single business we've worked in is what you think is probably going to work probably won't work. But you don't know it's not going to work, and you really don't know what will work until you get something out there and you start getting feedback and you start talking to your customers or your clients. So we started the turmeric supplement. In terms of scaling, the second product we launched, we actually discontinued. It was a bone broth powder. And we had found an amazing partner, a co-manufacturer, and he really specialized in tablets and in powders. And so he really believed in and supported our ingredient mission and how we wanted to do sourcing and the way we wanted the products to be made, which was very non-traditional compared to the efficiency of how a lot of other supplements are made. And so anyways, I think he originally came up with a suggestion of, we have a really good source for this. We could possibly do a bone broth powder. It was when bone broth was like really, the powders in particular were still really big.
I remember.
So we created it, and it launched really well, but we kept getting like a lot of mixed feedback about the taste. Some people liked it, some people didn't like it. We kept it for a while. We launched protein after that. We had a really strong response to our first protein product. So we said, interesting. Like the turmeric's selling well, but protein, this has a lot of opportunities from a business standpoint. It's a higher retail item. So we did go into the protein powders.
You weren't concerned about the protein powder space being saturated?
No.
You just felt that means there's a lot of demand?
I feel like everything's saturated.
You're right. I agree.
Everything's saturated. And I said this the other day. I was talking to someone. I said, I think innovation is overrated.
I really want you to unpack that.
I don't know that I necessarily want that on my tombstone. But one thing I have learned,
I agree with you for the record,
through working at Truvani is, and particularly, we've never been a protein powder company exclusively. We've never been we've always been an ingredient company. We wanted to create the best products with the best ingredients, and through our process of product development, that's led us into different sectors. We've done personal care, we've done snacks, we've done all these different things. But for us, the best way has not been to create a new category for a product. It's been find a product where we can create something that's cleaner with better ingredients that has a good sized market. You don't want to create something that has, a teeny tiny market, but what's a product that people are already using in their everyday lives that we can make with better ingredients? And so, no, I don't think, maybe Devin or Derek, they had this concern, but for me, it was never about the market being saturated. It was, what are the best products that we can create within our realm of experience, within, what we could, product development's hard.
It is. You're talking about all of these products up until now, you're talking about direct to consumer, right?
Correct. Yeah. We were exclusive direct to consumer for about 3.5 years.
Right. And you've only gotten into retail in the last 2 years, two and a half years. Okay. So talk to me about the transition there, because all of the data that you're talking, like your analysis of the data and the sell through and all of that, that's based on direct to consumer of you developing your own audiences and you doing online advertising and, and basically, addressing all those different cohorts. I understand why you went into retail. I get it. I didn't understand it at first, but I didn't.
There's still some days I don't understand it.
But not just for you. Like in general, I thought direct to consumer, is the best. But then in talking to, because we've now partnered with, like from an equity perspective, with some CPG brands, and they're explaining that we actually. It's funny because when they would come to partner with us, we thought that they needed our help in getting to our audience to make direct sales from a D2C perspective. But in reality, they needed kind of our, like when I say our, I mean Valeria's personal brand on their presentation decks to retailers to expedite the process of getting on shelves.
Wow.
And so I learned that recently. So that's why I kind of made that connection with, I understand why you guys went into retail, because you need to get into retail because the companies get valued based on their retail, on their retail presence. So I have a question for you about your retail sales.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh man, don't put me on the spot with numbers. But okay.
Well, no, not for numbers, not for numbers. Devin, when we spoke, he mentioned to me, and this was a few months ago, he mentioned to me that your retail sales are very strong, and that your retail partners, when you put your product in, they're like almost shocked. They don't know how you do it.
Record breaking.
They're record breaking in terms of your ability to sell in store.
Correct.
Okay, that's hard to do.
Yes.
Because it's one thing when you control the entire user experience.
Yes.
The entire, customer experience and the entire funnel. When you're controlling the whole thing, in a D2C environment, that's one thing. But now you've added this huge, like real life element where you're in a store.
Yeah.
And, you're competing with products in the same category that are on different like places, like in the store. that's a whole other thing.
The big boys, yep.
So how is it that you're able to drive so much sales in an environment where you have probably a fraction of the control that you did and do in the direct-to-consumer channel?
That's a great question. It's a question that I think a lot of people, some of our competitors, are wondering.
Well, if it's proprietary, you
No,
don't have
it
to
is
answer.
not proprietary at all. I would say the fact that we did D2C exclusively for the first 3 years was a big part of that success. Now that I've gotten more versed in the CPG world and I've met a lot of other founders, so many people start with trying to get into retail. And I was actually at a really interesting conference a couple months ago, and I was in a room with a lot of startup founders, and it was in the beauty space, and they were all like trying to figure out how to get into Sephora. They wanted to get on shelf in Sephora. And I was one of the only people in the room that had businesses pretty distributed in retail or in wholesale. And I said, listen, getting on the shelf is the easy part.
Getting off the
getting your
shelf.
products off the shelf.
Wow. Okay.
That is really what you need to be focusing on. And when we do pitch retailers, which we've had a lot of big pitches in the last couple of months, that is the predominant thing we focus on, is how we are going to move the product off their shelves. We talk a little bit, but we talk very little about the product and the ingredients and the taste, because yes, of course, it's a given, right? Your product needs to have clean ingredients in this day and age. It needs to taste good. Sure, the packaging needs to look good. That's not what's going to sell a retailer. So what we do is we present plans for, here are our unique marketing initiatives, and I won't get into the nitty-gritty details, but we have a very, I don't know if systemized is the right word, but we have a plan that we use through digital marketing efforts, through experiences, through gifting, through influencers, that we present as kind of a package of, this is our Truvani marketing plan for how we are going to make sure this product moves off your shelves.
Was that a big shift from D2C in terms of your marketing? Because, I mean, there's kind of two, I see a spectrum with marketing. And on one side, there's conversion marketing, you know, which is for every, you know, for those who don't know, it's for every dollar spent, you have to, you know, do $1.30 in gross margin as an example to get a 30% ROI on your ad spend. And then the other side is this, you know, is the branding piece, the storytelling piece, which you can't even measure. Like, you don't know, you're just kind of hoping you measure it based on, you know, the amount of people you reach, impressions on certain ads and whatnot. On D2C, my understanding, not specific to your business, but my understanding on D2C is a lot of it is conversion-based marketing. It's kind of, you know, real time. It's, you know, trying to back out in real time. It's that arbitrage, that real-time arbitrage. But brand marketing is very different. So, well, because it's hard, right? Because you can measure, you know, when you were only doing D2C, you could, you know, it's formulaic. I mean, it's not easy to do. It's not easy to back out in real time. You guys are obviously doing it, but you know, that's one thing. But then how do you make that switch? And I'm asking you because you're the marketing person. I understand that you're the marketing person. More so than Devin. You're the marketing, you're on the creative side.
Sure.
I understand that Derek is a lot of the kind of, you know, head down on the computer analyzing the numbers. But how do you kind of reconcile, how do you bridge that gap when you move into retail and now you have to do brand marketing in order to build that goodwill with your customers so they actually go in the store and take your product off that shelf?
We laugh about this all the time because D2C is our jam. You know, that's what we've always known. That's where we're comfortable. And then you start getting into wide scale distribution with wholesaling and retailers. And it is a totally different ballgame. Yes, you have spins and you have different reports that will kind of show you how you're moving at different stores and things like that, which is very helpful. But we always laugh because we do things now and we evaluate things now in a way that, like, we used to say awareness marketing was a dirty word. When we were first starting, we're like, if we can't track it, if we can't, you know, analyze it, it doesn't exist. No dollar was spent unless we knew exactly how it performed. We had so much control over how we were marketing the brand, what the touch points were, all these things. And then you do start getting out into the real world and it does become more about awareness and things that we never thought we would be talking about or driving initiatives behind. And that's honestly one of my favorite parts about Truvani is the business I work in today is pretty much unrecognizable than the business 6 years ago. And that's not just because there's more people or, there's more sales or customers. It's like
there's a lot more sales, Melanie.
The way we think about the business, the way we market it, it's so different.
Yeah.
So different.
Yeah, no, I understand. For us being on the influencer side and on the marketing side and dealing with brands, we do a lot of brand deals. We do hundreds of brand deals a year.
Yeah.
And it's always this kind of question of conversion versus branding. So no, I totally understand it, but you have to take, I think, at certain points, a leap of faith with certain marketing channels, for that storytelling piece.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your advocacy for women in business.
Oh, let's talk about it. It's one of my favorite things to talk about.
Do you feel that there are unique challenges, that female founders face versus men, I guess?
I feel like everyone has unique challenges. I don't know. I'm not going to 100% take your bait here. I don't know. No, I'm not trying to bait you. I don't know that it's necessarily like a men versus women thing. And it is interesting because I loved going to conferences. I love meeting people, and I love conferences with just women because it's really fun to be surrounded by women. It's just a different feel. But I don't ever agree when it becomes kind of a negative thing, like, oh, it's harder for women, harder for men. I just don't think that's necessarily a viewpoint that really serves you to fixate on.
I agree.
Is it true? Is it not true? I don't know. Who's to say? Like, life's not fair. It's not fair. The one thing I will say that I hate, and I hate when people talk about mom guilt.
Yeah.
I really don't like it. And if I'm ever on a panel or anything and it comes up, which it does very often, I always try to squash it because, as you know, words have power. And the more you talk about mom guilt, the more mom guilt becomes a thing. And I think that it's very important for women to realize it's okay to have aspirations outside of your children. It's okay if you don't have them outside of your children, but I don't know where this idea of feeling guilty about having a career, having a drive, having to make sacrifices. One of the best lessons I've learned, so my daughter's 8. I know we have kids very similar ages. And Devin does this too. Devin and I try to involve our kids in the business as much as possible. They're not shipping packages or anything like that, but we try to have the business be something that we're all doing together. Yeah. And my son, who is 5, just turned 5, he says he works for Truvani. Like, he will tell his teachers he works for Truvani. I think where it can get really tricky is when you make it this negative thing when you talk with your children of, I have to go to work. I can't do this because of X, Y, Z. Where when your kids feel like they're building it with you and they're a part of it, there's a very different viewpoint. And also the way you look at, like, I travel quite a bit for work. I'm going to be in New York this weekend. My daughter will be, with my husband. My son will be with my husband. And yeah, my daughter, doesn't want me to go, and she misses me, but it's also really important for her to see what goes into building a business and to see, like, that was one thing my parents both said, an amazing example of hard work. They worked all the time. It was always like, that is the expectation. If you're going to do something, you're going to do it as best as you can, and you're going to work hard at it. My children need to see that, I think. It's a very personal opinion.
I agree with you. Valeria has mom guilt. She's much better now.
Yeah.
And I think one of my biggest roles in our business is coaching her through some of the things that she goes through. And obviously I'm not a woman, so it's hard for me to kind of have that perspective, but I try to be as empathetic, as possible. And when it comes to the mom guilt, she gets it really bad. She does. And what I tell her that the time you spend away from the kids, you have to understand that you're showing them an example of a strong woman who's building her career, who's helping millions of people, and who's doing something really meaningful. Yeah. And they will get far more benefit to see this than they will that extra couple of hours or the fact that they didn't see you for 2 or 3 days. Because, like, I'm around, or grandma's around, or nannies are around.
Right.
And that's what I always say. So I think from a woman's perspective, I think that's the message that and I think you're agreeing that that's what it is that you're showing your kids you're contributing so much more by the example that you're setting. And
having pride around that. Like Absolutely. I said, this is my own decision. It's not the decision for every woman, and I fully respect that. But for me, if I'm ever sad about missing out on something or not being there, I try to replace it with truly gratitude for the opportunity, what I'm able to do, what I'm able to build. I mean, Dev and I laugh all the time, just the different offhand conversations our kids hear over dinner about the business. Like, what would that be like? I mean, I didn't grow up with anything like that. You know, what would it be like to hear your mom and dad talking about, you know, this new big deal with Whole Foods or like this, you know, big distribution thing, or even just, you know, all these cool product expansions. And I have friends that did grow up with very successful entrepreneurial families, and they talk about that was where they learned to be successful, was not necessarily their mom or dad sitting them down and having some conversation, but just being around
proximity.
Yeah, being around the ideas and the work and seeing it happen alongside of your family.
Yeah. I want to go back to the woman thing.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the woman thing. Again, you know, you talk about helping women. You've helped, you know, thousands of women through your work. Again, I'm just trying to understand, and I'm not trying to, you know, bait you or anything, but I'm just trying to understand, like, you know, female founders that I talk to, they do say that there's a certain, I guess, you know, reality that they do have children and they have to take these leaves of absence. How do you coach women through this? I guess this feeling of, I don't want to say inequality, because I don't believe that women are unequal in business at all, but there is the actual, like, physically, like, you need to be away to, you know, to have a child. How do you coach women through that? How do you get them to, like, kind of reconcile that?
Well, I think that you have to be gracious with yourself and understand there's going to be seasons throughout your life. I've had 2 children. I've been pregnant. I've breastfed. I've done things that there have been times I haven't been able to be operating at 115% capacity in my career. But I've also been doing this for 17 years.
Yeah.
There's been some years I am at, like this year, full tilt the business. I am still trying to be as present as possible with my family, but I am now at an age where my children are in school full time. So it's like, let's go. But there's been years when I've been pregnant or we had 2 kids and I was working in a more, I don't want to say limited, but specific capacity in the business, where I was taking on certain things that were within my role, getting the things done, but I wasn't just trying to do all the things and be all the places in expansion, which I currently do feel I have the bandwidth because of the stage of my family.
Right. Were you kind to yourself at those times? Or did you feel this, like, guilt that you're not, you know, you perceive that you're not doing enough? Not that that's the truth, but were you kind to yourself? Because again, my reference is Valeria. Where there were times where she wasn't kind to herself, where she had this guilt of, I'm not doing enough at work, I'm not doing enough with the kids. Did you ever have that?
I'm sure that I did. What pops into my mind is, I remember after I had my daughter, I didn't take official maternity leave, and it had been about 2 weeks after, I hadn't been working, it had been about 2 weeks after I had her. And I just, like, opened my computer and started doing a little bit of some work projects. And it was the first time in 2 weeks that I felt really good. And let me explain this. Because as a new mom, at least for me, the first 2 weeks are just crazy. You don't know what you're doing. It's entirely overwhelming. You're not good at a lot of it. You're still trying to figure so much of it out. And here I can sit down in a business I've established and I can do what I know how to do and that feels like me. And I always remember that because I thought it was really interesting. And, you know, with my son, it was different, but that was such a grounding thing for me to be able to work. And I wasn't working 40 plus hours a week 2 weeks after I had my daughter. So I'm not trying to say that I was, but to have a business that I was able to step back into when I felt ready. And then to give myself, you said being kind, to give myself permission, this feels good to you. You can be working 2 weeks after. You don't have to take 3 months off. Like, you get to decide what this looks like. You get to decide what's true for you as your journey, as a mother, as a woman. And it's different for everyone. For me, starting on some work emails 2 weeks after I had my daughter felt amazing. With my son, and Devin always gives me so much crap about this, my son, I was in labor, and you have 3 children, so you know everyone's different.
Were you operating your business while you were in labor? Is that what you're... No, stop.
We were doing a photo shoot in New York, and I was on Skype we were using Skype then. I was Skype with my team. They were on set in New York, and I was helping them with different logistics of the photo shoot. And he has pictures of it. Dear God, I hope you don't share them. But I'm literally I'm not having a contraction or anything, but labor takes a while. So I was working, and he just thought that was so hilarious. And it wasn't because I had to, or I felt like the business would collapse if I wouldn't. It was just, it has always been such a part of me since I've started working in businesses that that felt like the most authentic, true thing for me to do, or the way to be behaving was, I'm in labor, but my team's also executing this really important product launch, and I want to make sure that I'm available to them. I wouldn't do it if it was putting myself or my children in harm, but it's like, it's just who I am. It's in the DNA.
Wow.
It's probably a problem. I probably shouldn't admit that.
No, I don't think it's a problem. Look, I think for myself, like if I had to kind of, compare, like for myself as an entrepreneur who, I'd like to consider myself a type A. I want to get things done.
Yeah.
When I have to step away from whatever business I'm running, I do go through guilt. Like I go through guilt about, why am I stepping away from this business? Like I need to be here, and the things that I'm doing are trivial. Obviously having children, isn't trivial, but like even when I have to do things around the house and I have to do it in the middle of the day and I can't do the things that I need to do for the business, it bothers me. So it's tough. It's tough as a woman stepping away from, because as an entrepreneur, regardless of your gender, you love your business. Like you fall in love with your business.
It's one of my children.
It really is. And as much as we say to ourselves, no, it's just an avenue for profit. Like you have to dissociate yourself from it. You can't have this emotional tie to it, but you do. And you have to have that emotional tie.
I couldn't do what I did if I didn't have an emotional tie.
Well, in order to serve your customers, you need to be connected to your business emotionally.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So no, I can't imagine. I think it's a very difficult thing to do. I want to switch gears and I want to talk about the fact that your husband is your business partner. And that's really the only way you've ever known him.
Exactly.
Is as your business partner. And I'm going to recall, sitting here and I was speaking with him, and I asked him kind of, one of the things that he told me, and I took this back and I use it, this strategy with Valeria and I is when you guys go away somewhere, and it's just the two of you, I believe I was kind of asking him, like, how do you avoid talking about business? And he basically said, we don't. No. He said, we do talk about business. He said, however, when the two of you go away, you try to keep it high level.
Right.
So rather than getting into the nitty gritty of it and getting into like the minutia and like the operational details, which can be very stressful, Larry and I deal with it all the time. You guys keep it high level, and it's more, I think, like aspirational, long-term goals. So that's great. And that was like a nice, I want to call it like a nice hack that I've been trying to use, although we can't avoid the minutia like on a daily basis, including like this morning at like 6 a.m., right? So talk to me about that, about how you see that, and how would you advise other people who are considering getting into business with their spouse?
Number one rule I always say, and you pointed it out already, was stay in your own lanes, meaning you pointed out that the story or what Devin tells you, his account of one business, is very different than my account. It's because we were working in totally different divisions on very different projects, tied into our very unique strengths.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I would say, is if you are going to work with, anyone truly, but particularly your spouse, be very clear about what each one of you is owning, and then release that. Like if that is their job, that is what they're owning, you can be there to support. Yeah. If they ask for advice or they want feedback, you can provide that.
Yeah.
But you also need to know that they have the right to not take that. Like Devin gave me feedback the other day on a packaging thing, and I said, thank you. But no, like that's he's like, I just wanted to point it out because it's something I was thinking, and, maybe do it this way. I said, thank you, but we're going to go in this direction. He's like, okay, great. And I don't meddle. I don't want to meddle in the stuff that he meddles in, but that's very, very important, is to not try and work on the same things in the business. And when you do collaborate, respect each other's own areas of authority.
You're right. Right. Well, there's a lot of kind of overlap with what we do. I'm also dealing with other elements. We have a CEO, a woman. So, so I'm constantly, not that I'm trying to find my place, but I like considering the market that we serve. How do you keep it from not getting personal? Like, how do you keep the office in the office and home at home?
We don't.
Really?
It is personal.
It is personal. Do you find that, is that negative, do you think?
I don't think so. And what I will say, whenever I talk or whenever people ask me about working with Devin, it's just the fact that I truly don't know anything different. I have never run a business without Devin. And since I have been 19, Devin and I have been doing projects like this together.
Right.
So almost more of my life now I've been doing like this than the other way around. So that's a very important thing. But I don't understand, and I could just be delusional, but it's working for me, so don't, burst my bubble. I just don't understand this division between the office and personal. Like, this is our life. It's one thing. There's not different divisions. It's all one big, beautiful mess. And some days it works really well. Some days it doesn't work very well.
Right.
But one of my own personal, go-to practices that I could not live without is every week I do a week in review. And I use a full focus planner, but it goes through and gives you prompts in terms of what worked, what are you going to continue doing, what didn't work, what are you going to stop doing. And I do that every single week.
On your own or with Devin?
No, on my own.
Okay.
But that's one of the things that I've noticed in terms of, there's not like I have a column for what worked in my business, what worked in my life. It's one column. There's things that worked for me professionally. There's things that didn't work professionally that bled into my life in a negative way, my personal life, or the way I showed up as a parent or as a wife. But I can't separate them. I don't want to separate them. It sounds like more work to separate them than to just keep them all together.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Do you feel that you're an outlier? Like, do you feel like you and Devin are outliers? Valeria and I are outliers?
Weird. Yeah, I do think we're weird. And the older I get, the more I'm comfortable with that. But yeah, I do think, and I think I'm getting weirder as I get older.
Do you know what I think? Do you know what I think is peculiar about it, and what's rare about it is, like, I've spent time with you and Devin. Like, you guys are an actual real married couple. Like, meaning you haven't. No. What I mean by that is that you haven't become just business partners. Like, you guys are very much a married couple. And if somebody who didn't know that you run a business together, especially at the scale that you do, if they didn't know, they wouldn't know. Like, they wouldn't be like, oh my God, like, you do seem like married first. You seem like husband and wife first, and then almost like business partners second.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. And I think that's what's rare. Would you, I guess I know the answer to the question, would you advise specifically young women to get into business with their husbands, or would it depend? Would you tell them it depends on the husband?
Oh my God, that's such a hard blanket statement to make.
No, but I mean, you base it on your own experiences, right? I mean, look, it's working out great for you. It
is working out great. I do think it really, really it depends on the person, and it depends on the spouse, and it depends on the relationship. Because I have friends that, balk at the idea of working with their husband, and they love having these kind of separate lives. And I can't even imagine. It's so bizarre to me to think about sitting down at the dinner table with Devin and hearing him talk about his day or his coworkers, and not having been on those meetings with him or know the people intimately that he's talking about. That to me is such a beautiful shared experience.
It makes you closer?
I think so. I do think so.
You've touched upon this, but I wanna go back to it a little bit. How do you remove ego? Because that's where I'm trying, like, that's where there's a personal overlap, right?
Right.
So let's say, for example, you have a disagreement professionally, especially in front of, let's say, your employees.
Yeah.
When you have that disagreement professionally, and let's say it gets heated, sometimes it does, whether it's in front of employees or not in front of employees. Maybe you're very disciplined as to not let things get heated, and then you take things offline where your employees don't see, and that's one of the things that we try to do.
Yeah.
But when there's a disagreement, whether it's in public or whether it's just the two of you, when it comes to the business specifically, the bell rings, you go home. Now you're at home. Is that gone? Is that disagreement, or is that conflict now gone, or does that conflict spill over into your personal life? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, I don't think it does spill over very often.
You can turn it off, or do you just don't have that much conflict?
I think you have to turn it off. We don't have a ton of conflict. I will say that. but I'm thinking of a couple instances where it has happened. And the truth is, you're partners, not just in the business, but in life.
Yes.
And like for us, 5:25, kids are rolling through the door.
Yeah.
They have needs. Someone's crying. Someone needs something. Like there's homework. They're hungry. You switch off if you can. Sometimes you can't. And, you know, I have to take care of something, or Devin, and you have each other's back. But the fact is, there's another fire now. So it's like, okay, the work thing happened today. Still I'm a little, you know, maybe agitated or upset about this. But you switch to, okay, now for the next 2.5 or 3 hours, it is dinner time. It is time with the kids. It is homework. We don't have to do bath time anymore. They're a little bit older, but like it becomes that mode. You switch modes. And Devin is truly an incredible father and husband. I mean, I hit the jackpot. It was pure luck because I didn't know going into it what an amazing father he was going to be and husband. I just thought it was cute, but he is a phenomenal father and husband. And so he turns into that. That's the role he turns into. And so the stuff that happened during the workday, unless it's something there's very few times that we are still working in the business after 5:30. There's outliers. There's things that sometimes we are. But usually as soon as our kids come home, we're focused on those roles. And I would say that any sort of disagreement or anything, it's tabled until the next day, or at least until the kids go to bed.
What would be some high level advice that you have for people who are considering? I mean, you became an entrepreneur so young.
Yeah.
So young. But regardless of the stage of life that they're at, what would you say to somebody who wants to kind of jump onto this side of the, you know, of the fence and be an entrepreneur?
I would say do it. It's the best thing in the world. I love it. It's so dang hard, but I can't imagine the richness of my life without that component. And probably the main reason why is I think being an entrepreneur, running a business is like the ultimate self-development boot camp. Because you have to become, every day, you have to become a little bit better, particularly if your business is growing or you want it to grow. That's one of the reasons I've always liked reading, but one of the reasons I'm such an avid reader is my business today requires knowledge and skills that I just don't have yet. And every day, and I'm so lucky to work with an amazing team now. I'm working with people that have experience and specialized knowledge and all these areas that I get to learn from. I'm a very avid learner, which I've realized about myself now. And so I think as long as you're learning and growing, you're happy. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is people think if you're comfortable, you're going to be happy. And one of the things that I have learned is comfort is kind of like the enemy of actually being happy and fulfilled. So having a business being this ultimate self-development boot camp is so helpful because I personally feel like I have no other choice. Every day I have to figure out how to be my best or try to be my best mentally, physically, to be learning, to be getting better, to be taking feedback, to be trying new things, to be exploring, to be taking risks. And so every year, I mean, when Dev and I sit down, we do a trip at the end of every year. I don't know if maybe this is a new couples nugget I can tell you. I was texting Valeria when we were on this in December. We do a 2 or 3 day trip at the end of the year, just the two of us. No kids. We usually go somewhere, like we went to Vermont this past year, somewhere that you can just really unplug. And we review the year together and we set goals for the next year. And it's so exciting to look at our past year and all the things that happened, good or bad, how we grew from them. And I don't know how you'd really be pushed or propelled to do that. I mean, I guess if you have a very unique career, sure, maybe also that. But like there's the reason we can look back on our year and go, holy crap, that was incredible, is because you have this business that you're trying to grow and drive, and it's just so fun. It's so hard, but it's so fun.
And do you still consult? Because that's what I'm reading about you, is that you consult women. Is that it doesn't sound like
Not
you have time
currently,
for that.
no. So I did that a lot when I was doing the digital strategy. Right now, I am fully dedicated to Truvani.
Right.
But yeah.
What's next for Truvani?
Oh my gosh, so much fun stuff.
Tell me.
This is a really exciting year because, as you mentioned earlier in the bio, we've been very successful in the natural space. So we've had, #1 products and Whole Foods and all these great stores. This is the year we're taking on conventional, and I'm excited about this for a variety of reasons. So if you think about conventional grocery, it's more of like the Krogers, the Walmarts, like the big box stores, the Costcos.
Oh, sorry, you're not changing your product lines.
We're not
or you're
changing our
enhancing
product
them probably,
line.
but
We're talking about getting into
distribution.
Yes, bigger retailers.
So I wanna understand that a little bit more, because your product being as clean as your product is, it's really, when I think of your product, I'm not thinking like Costco. I'm not thinking mainstream retailers. I am thinking specialty, like Sprouts, I believe you're in, and Whole Foods that you're in. That's what I'm thinking. Crossing this line, that sounds like a major challenge to me. Not only
Huge.
Not only getting into those channels, but understanding the consumers.
It's a totally different consumer.
It's totally different, because I feel like, I don't know, I'll make the statement, it's probably kind of incorrect, but like half the sales almost already done because they know they're buying it at Whole Foods. So there's it's a better for you option, the product that they're getting when they purchase Truvani. But you're putting now your product into mainstream distribution, where that's not the mentality of that cohort of human beings.
Yes.
How are you? So what's the plan there? I'd love to hear this, because I understand. I understand the potential for just explosive growth, because now you're going mainstream.
Yes.
You're like, the I don't know, like the McDonald's brand wise of that space, right? Of this clean ingredient space. How are you, like, what's the plan here?
This is what we're figuring out.
Okay.
Yes. So this is the big challenge of this year and definitely next year.
Right.
Is figuring out, how do you scale that awareness? One of the things we talk about with our team is we've been getting all of these new points of distribution. And if you were perhaps new to the CPG space, you would think, great, the business is growing. But the way we look at it is that the more points of distribution, the more demand you need.
Yes.
So the marketing team, every time we announce, oh my gosh, you're 2,000 new doors here, 1,000 new doors here, we say, let's get to work. We've now got to go create 1,000 new customers, 2,000 new customers. So that is the big projects, initiatives we're working on internally this year, is how do we take our product and get the demand to exceed outside of the natural market. And there's different ways we'll be testing that, and we're beginning the stages of different initiatives and things. It has a lot to do with awareness.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with messaging. I could take the easy answer and say, oh, consumers are becoming more and more knowledgeable and careful. They are, to a certain degree, but it's also about understanding our product and where the points of mass appeal are, and also understanding human behavior and what those mechanisms are that are going to make someone want to pay a premium for something. But that is we're launching some new flavors of our protein, of our bars. We're very excited about that. But the big thing this year is figuring out, how do we take all the success we've seen in natural and expand that to the conventional channel?
Well, it's how do you tell the story? It's how do you tell the story to that target audience? I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
I'm really excited. I mean, seeing your product in mainstream, that'll be something.
It'll be an adventure.
Okay. Well, Melanie, listen, I want to thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time with me today. And you are overdue. You and Devin, you guys know you're overdue.
The cold plunge.
I think the cold plunge, you know what the cold plunge like symbolizes to me? It's almost like business. Like, to your point, you said something earlier that we kind of don't grow through comfort.
Right.
And that's why I'm a big believer in trying to put myself under stress on a daily basis and do something that is not pleasant for me, and that's shocking to me.
Yeah.
Because I believe it's through that discomfort that we progress.
Absolutely.
Just like in business.
Actually think I have so many friends that cold plunge, and I do believe in it, but I'm not sure. I think it might be more of a mental exercise than a physical one, which is really cool.
Yeah, because, well, it depends how long you stay.
Yeah.
Because what happens is the longer you stay in that, the more the cold is penetrating. And so I feel a difference when I'm in there for 3 minutes or 7. If I'm in there for 7, then I feel like things are, like, you need to call the paramedics. Like, I have them on standby. Oh my God. Yeah, it can get dangerous if you stay too long at a certain temperature. Because it's like a time, right? Like over time, it just gets deeper and deeper into your body, and then it penetrates probably places it shouldn't.
Now you're selling it.
And then you get in trouble. But the short term, I don't think there's any health benefits from 3 to 7 minutes. I think I'm a glutton for punishment. I think I just enjoy it.
I believe that.
Enjoy it. Okay, so you're overdue. So do I have your commitment that you guys are going to come soon?
I will come. Do I have to necessarily go in the ice?
How about we do this? How about we do this?
Can we take the ice out?
We can take the ice out. I will compromise. How about we do this? You tell
fair.
me what temperature you want me to set it at.
Fair.
It will be custom set for you.
84, perfect.
84. That's you know what, the swimming pool's at like 95.
The swimming pool is great. I will definitely come back and go in the swimming pool.
Done. Melanie, thank you.
Thank you.